You can teach someone a cultural dance. What if the younger generation does not want to continue dancing? And while you may teach your children how to make cassava bread, what if they go off to pursue their dreams and never share their knowledge? While presently there are tailors and seamstresses who make costumes for a cultural performance, what if the art is lost before they get a chance to pass on their skill? These are some of the considerations of an Intangible Cultural Heritage, or ICH, project that recently received funding from UNESCO, the United Nations Educational and Scientific Organization. We will let Marlene Phillips, the Department of Culture's Research and Documentation Specialist, and Jacquan Harvey, acting ICH, that is Intangible Cultural and Heritage Secretariat Manager, tell you all about the possibilities that this funding allows. Good morning, ladies, and welcome to Good Morning SKN.
Welcome. Good morning.
All right, so let's talk firstly about the funding. How much funding was received, and what will it be used to do?
Well, this is actually the second time we've received funding from UNESCO, from the Intangible Cultural Heritage Fund. Initially, we were the first country in the English-speaking Caribbean to receive funding from UNESCO, an Intangible Cultural Heritage of just under $100,000 US. And it was a project that we did. It was a 2 years project that started in, the whole journey started in 2016, and then eventually in 2019 we got approval to do the project, the 2 years project. And then after that, we went through the different training process, and we said, okay, this worked out very well. We built capacity. Now, what's the next thing that we have to do to safeguard intangible cultural heritage? So we sat down, wrote another project, another proposal, requesting more support from UNESCO, and it just got approved in June, $92,000 US that we have received for a project that will start in 2023 to 2024.
Okay.
That's great.
Wow, nice. So what is the role of the ICH in the preservation of our local heritage?
Jacquan, you want to do? Sure.
Well, the role of ICH is really to safeguard our St. Kitts and Nevis culture and heritage. Like, for instance, when we look at steel pan in Trinidad and Tobago, we can see that that's something huge for them.
Yes.
Now, here in St. Kitts and Nevis, well, masquerade is
Yes,
huge
the
for
big,
us.
yeah.
So we can now use that and safeguard masquerades and our other folklore troops or anything cultural and heritage-wise in St. Kitts and Nevis. Send this to UNESCO and it will be recognized across the world as our own.
Nice.
So that is really the
Yeah, that's quite remarkable indeed. All right, so we're talking about the intangibles here. Can you give us an example of ICH and the Federation? Things that perhaps the normal person wouldn't necessarily think of.
Okay, well, we follow the UNESCO guidelines where they have 5 ICH domains. These domains are performing arts, oral traditions and expressions, knowledge and nature concerning the universe, and also traditional craftsmanship. Now, for example, I already listed what is performing arts. We have our folklore. There is also theater. With oral and traditions, it will be storytelling, but also traditional expressions like our local sayings, the way that we speak. That is also ICH. And then with knowledge concerning nature and the universe would be our herbal remedies, but also cotton and sugar, something that we had a long time ago. Traditional craftsmanship would be pottery, anything traditional craftsmanship wise. So we also have our food, our Kitishan food, saltfish, dumpling, well, something that one of our trainees who actually works with the guy, Miss Aksana, she covered the ICH elements of Mabi, the drink, the local drink, and also the cassava bread, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and the cassava bread. And we also have the patchness, but most people won't think about that.
All right, so since she covered it, I know what to expect from her tomorrow. All right.
Indeed. So Marlene, you are St. Kitts focal point for the ICH, and Patrick Howell is the focal point for ICH in Nevis. What are your roles in this project?
Okay, well, being focal point for intangible cultural heritage, nationally representing St. Kitts and Nevis, we look to see what needs to be safeguarded. We work closely with the institutions. Patrick Howell works in the Nevis Cultural Development Foundation, and he is the manager of the Research and Documentation Unit. So our roles are respective, and I work here in St. Kitts in Culture. So we have to make sure that the project is implemented. We have to make sure that we dialogue with the community, find out what it is they want to safeguard, and also use our expertise to share knowledge about the convention. The 2003 convention has a lot of mechanisms in it and definitions that we haven't been familiar with, but we have been safeguarding ICH for years. The Department of Culture was established in 1995, and it wasn't called Intangible Cultural Heritage, but what the officers were doing was safeguarding, preserving, documenting. I don't know if you remember Under Banyan Tree on ZIZ, a popular program that used to air. That was done by Department of Culture. It spoke about traditions, people in the community that were doing things to preserve our heritage, our culture. And so as focal points, we need to make sure that the projects get implemented, recruit the expertise that we need, engage with the community, members of the community, the tradition bearers, and get them involved in the whole process. The projects that we've done in the past and the one that we have coming up involves training, building capacity. We trained the tradition bearers with skills for documenting, interviewing, archiving, right? Using a particular software that we purchased to make sure that we can transfer all of this information and share it with the public on our website.
No. Other than the masquerade that I personally see being preserved for generations to come, do you think the other cultural, intangible cultural stuff will be preserved as well?
Yes, I mean, there's so much. You know, when we think about culture, some people have a hard time defining it, right? And you have to remember that we're a mixed culture, right? We in the Caribbean, we're mixed with African, and we're descendants of Africans, and we've been influenced by Europeans, by British, by French, by Portuguese, by Spanish, and that mixes up our culture. So when you travel through the Caribbean, you will hear similarities, familiar sayings, or similar food, or food is prepared in a similar way, but there are also things that are unique, you know, nationally to St. Kitts and Nevis. So these traditions that we have, and you mentioned the masquerade, and that is expressed through performing arts. We've got the clown, makajumbi, etc. And we also express it through food. The foods that are maybe not indigenous to St. Kitts and Nevis, but traditionally, this is the food that the people eat, and how you prepare something, the method. This is intangible cultural heritage. So, you know, it's not, the performing arts might be the most prominent and visible one that everybody sees and knows, but there are other things. For example, I don't think that people generally look at our seamstresses, right? They make clothing, they make costumes. That's an art form.
Yes.
Not everyone is good at sewing, you know, or making costumes. So, you know, we've never done an assessment of how many seamstresses there are in St. Kitts and Nevis, and how many participate in safeguarding our culture by making costumes for carnival, costumes for the folklore, you know, craft. Again, and I'll use the performing arts as an example, or our folklore as an example, because they have tools that they use. The string band, there's instruments that they need to play. Somebody has to make that. Right? So there's a method in making it. There's a particular kind of wood that would be used to make that instrument. So just going a little bit deeper, where does that wood come from? There's got to be somebody in St. Kitts and Nevis, I think more so in Nevis, that makes the quattro, for example. Where is the wood that he gets for that quattro? Does he have to go up in the mountain and get this particular tree to make it? So further with the environment, are we safeguarding that? Are we safeguarding that specific tree that he needs to make the quattro? Or are we just bulldozing it to make more housing development without any consideration or thought to the resource, right? So when we speak about safeguarding, you can apply it to many different things, many different domains. And yeah, ask the question, how do we safeguard it? And that's why we have to speak to people in the community, the traditional knowledge bearers. These are the people who are keeping it alive. But they're not here forever.
Yes,
You know, age,
indeed.
all sorts of things can, you know, take a person out of this world. So does the knowledge die with them? Or do they pass it on? So when we say safeguarding, education is a big part. We want to engage the knowledge bearers to train other generations about the technique, the method, the music, how you play this, how you dance this, what do you say when you perform this art form, so that it doesn't disappear and become extinct. And we're talking about, can you imagine talking about the masquerade and saying, oh, I remember when, like, because there's no more masquerade.
Exactly.
But I can assure you it's very healthy. The masquerade is very healthy right now. There's an ICH element, but there are other ones that we have to safeguard before they disappear.
Good stuff. Indeed.
Is there any aspect of our culture that's more at risk of being lost than others?
Well, honestly, we have the Makajong. We don't really see it like how we
Yes,
used to.
you are correct.
So we actually have 2 upcoming projects
Nice.
coming up. Where the first one will be where we'll go speak to our tradition bearers who deal with the Makajongis, get the information from them, how to make the costumes, the history, everything. And then hopefully in December, we will then take the information that we got from Project 1 and have a training with children from different schools in the St. Kitts. We will teach them the art form, the history, how to make the costumes, the stilts, tradition, everything, and then hopefully they can take part in Canada.
Yes.
So that's the plan.
Now that you say that, I've not seen them in a while. Yeah.
And we love to see them.
Yes, because they're a spectacle. These tall guys just moving through the troops.
Yeah.
I enjoyed looking at them. So there was a previous ICH project that was done over the last 3 years. Tell us about that one.
Well, this project was called Safeguarding St. Kitts and Nevis Cultural Heritage for Future Generations and Now. With this project, we had our launch at NEMA. It was lovely. And then also that we held a series of different training workshops over the past months. We had one where, the series of workshops was actually called Capacity Building Workshops.
Okay.
We went out and trained our traditional bearers on how to go about and do interviews, how to document ICH, what questions to ask, where to go, how to identify ICH in their communities.
Okay.
So we have 5 zonal areas in St. Kitts. Then I went out into these areas where they do a pilot inventory. So they went to identify their ICH. As I mentioned, Oksana was a part of that. Yeah. So we actually covered 8 ICH elements in St. Kitts in the different zonal areas and 5 in Nevis.
Yeah, I think 5 and we focused on about 3. Yes.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll be working on our ICH inventory list. Where we would do the same thing, something like a proposal that we did for the first project and now this second project, where we'll try and get funding from UNESCO to safeguard these ICH elements in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Lovely.
Some of the elements were broom making in St. Kitts, cassava bread, doing
the village Sunday school,
peanuts.
We had the storytelling of rambling in Keon. I think that's something that used to be a festival like years ago. So it was really interesting. We also covered storytelling for the Shadwell Great House. We had the actors, the folklore. And in Nevis we had vernacular houses. What's the name of the cactus tree? Where he made drinks.
Cactus. Was one of the elements. And also Nevis pottery.
Yes.
Oh, that's so great. Well, in our final moments, what can you tell us very quickly about how the public can get involved?
Well, they can get involved. Just come to the ICH Secretariat at the St. Kitts Department of Culture. That's at the Circus. I'm giving the right. In the Circus. You must see the sign outside. You can come and speak to us. You can. Information would be great. So whatever we get, that would be great. You just come. You give us the information on whatever you think is ICH, whatever you think needs to be safeguarded. Then we will contact our traditional bearers, and then let me use the correct term. We call it our ICH trainings.
Okay.
Those are the ones that we taught how to document stuff, so then we will contact one of them and they will go with you and document the research. Then we will then go and put it into the past perfect archiving software that Marlene said, and then we can probably put it on our ICH inventory list. Send it off to UNESCO to get funding where we can go and safeguard this.
Lovely, lovely.
And I'll also direct people to check out the website on culture.gov.kn. Click on Intangible Cultural Heritage, and also on Facebook, you can look for St. Kitts, ICH St. Kitts and Nevis. I just want to reiterate that it's a national project, so it's not just happening in St. Kitts, it's happening in Nevis as well. It's a collaboration between both islands, and we are very excited to work with each other. And we also, this next project that's coming up, 2023, is to create a national ICH policy to make sure that we safeguard ICH, the environment, the materials, and also respect for the traditional knowledge bearers. Part of the whole process is including them and making sure they receive acknowledgement. And when I say respect of the skill that they have, and we want to utilize them to transfer the knowledge. So our projects that we write are so that they will be engaged and be the trainers of the group, so they will be remunerated for their knowledge and their skill sets. And we really need to make sure that we keep this alive for generations. If we as parents are not teaching our children about the tradition and customs of our culture, then it will die, because there's so many other influences, and you can see in the young generation today who is not keeping the tradition of Kittitian and Nevisian culture, right? So if you as parents don't teach your children how to cook that traditional dish, you don't teach your children about the origins of that music, or even the history. Unfortunately, in the schools, we don't learn a lot about African culture pre-colonization. There's a lot of amazing traditions that are manifesting in our art forms that come from Africa.